is Professor Mika Laihekoski from the Turku School of Economics. As the custos appointed by the Board of the Faculty of Business Studies of the University of Vaasa, I declare the proceedings open.
Mr. Custos, Mr. O'Connell, ladies and gentlemen. The behavior of asset prices is essential for many important decisions, not only for the professional investors, but also for almost everybody in the daily life. The choice between savings in the form of cash, bank deposits, or even real estate depend on what one thinks of the risk and return associated with these different forms of savings. Asset prices also play a key role in the macroeconomy because they provide important information for economic decisions concerning physical investments and consumption. While prices of financial assets often seem to reflect fundamental values, history provides anecdotal evidence to the contrary, in events typically referred to as status and crashes. Mispricing of assets may contribute to financial crisis, and as the recent recession illustrates, such prices can damage by contagion effects the world economy. Given the fundamental role of asset prices in many decisions, what can be said about the determinants? If it is possible to predict with a high degree of certainty that the value of one asset will increase more than the value of another asset, there may be some money to be made. In practice, however, investments in assets involve risk, so predictability becomes an economic concept. A particular asset trading strategy may give a high return on average, but is it possible to forecast exact returns from a limited set of historical data? Moreover, a high average return may be associated with high cost of risk. So predictability might not to be a sign of a market error at all, but instead just a fair compensation for risk taking. Hence, studies of asset pricing necessarily involve studying risk and its determinants. In 2013, Eugene Palmer received the Nobel Prize in Economics for his research that aims at uncovering how asset prices are determined. Already in 1990, the Nobel Prize in Economics was given to William Sharpe. Like Eugene Palmer, William Sharpe's research was related to asset pricing. The fact that within 25 years the Nobel Prize was given twice for asset pricing research may underline the importance of this field of research. Palmer and French highlight that the capital asset pricing model, the CAPM, of William Sharpe, John Lindner, marks the birth of asset pricing theory. Even 4 decades later, the CAPM is still widely used in applications such as estimating the cost of capital for firms and evaluating the performance of managed portfolios. It is a centerpiece of MBA investment courses. Due to its theoretical motivation, the CAPM is often the only asset pricing model taught in master level courses. The CAPM offers powerful and intuitively pleasing predictions about how to measure risk and relation between the expected return and risk. But unfortunately, the record of the model is rather poor. The failure of the CAPM may be complex. For instance, the setup of the CAPM may involve many simplifying assumptions. Moreover, it is virtually impossible to implement a valid test of the model. As an example, the CAPM implies that the risk of a stock should be measured relative to a comprehensive market portfolio, that in principle can include not only trade financial assets, but also consumer durables, real estate, and human capital. Even if there appears to be a consensus about the empirical outage of the CAPM, it may be noteworthy that in most empirical academic papers, the CAPM is still used at least for robustness checks. Another feature that makes the CAPM somewhat outstanding compared to other models is the theoretical derivation of the CAPM. Suppose that investors have a non-stochastic labor income and that investors have radical utility function. If it is apart from that assumed that the return on the reference portfolio is perfectly negatively correlated with marginal utility, the traditional CAPM can be easily derived as a special case of a theoretically motivated consumption CAPM. Even if Palmer and French highlight that the CAPM of William Sharpe and John Lindner marks the birth of asset pricing theory, consumption-based asset pricing is still the cornerstone of asset pricing. Cochrane points out the consumption-based model is, in principle, the complete answer to all asset pricing questions. In the standard consumption-based asset pricing model of type studied by Lucas, Schiller, Hansen, and Singleton, the quantity of stock market risk is measured by the covariance of the excess return with consumption growth, whereas the price of risk is the coefficient of relative risk aversion of the representative investor. However, consumption-based asset pricing models face some severe problems. The high average stock return and low risk-based interest rate imply that the expected excess return on stock, the equity premium, is high. The smoothness of consumption, however, makes the covariance rise of the stock return with consumption low. As a result, the equity premium could only be explained by an unreasonably high coefficient of risk aversion. The empirical fact that the average real stock return was so high in relation to the real interest rate has been referred to as an equity premium puzzle by Murray and Prescott. Since the standard model struggles to explain asset pricing phenomena such as the high ratio of equity premium to the standard deviation of stock returns, simultaneously with stable aggregate consumption growth, for instance, proxies for consumption risk are plausible alternatives in empirical asset pricing tests as pointed out in Savo. Consequently, a key topic in empirical asset pricing research is to explore which variables could act as proxies for consumption risk. In 1992, Palmer and French ended the era of the CAP-M and introduced their well-known three-factor asset pricing model. While the CAP-M can be considered as a special case of the consumption CAP-M, the well-known Palmer and French three-factor model is purely empirically motivated. In their seminal 92 paper, which already had more than 12,000 citations, Palmer and French consolidated the so-called size and value effect as documented in the first 5 months of Vaasa. The last sentence in the paper ended the era of the CAP-M, where they stated, "We are forced to conclude that the sharp lit and black model does not describe the last 50 years of average stock returns." In the wake of the seminal paper by Palmer and French, empirical asset pricing research attempted to uncover the underlying fundamental risk sources of the size anomaly and value anomaly. Another wide spread of empirical asset pricing literature documented other types of anomalies. For instance, Igeresh and Titman explored trading strategies that buy past winners and sell past losers. The results show that in the 65 to 89 period, selling stocks that had the lowest cumulative returns over the prior 3 to 12 month period, and buying stocks that had the highest cumulative returns over the prior 3 to 12 month period, yielded significant profits. For instance, a strategy that selects stocks based on the 6-month returns and holds them for 6 months realizes a compound excess return of 12.01% per year on average. Igeresh and Titman's result led to a considerable stream of literature focused on revealing what drives the so-called momentum anomaly. For instance, Newberg and Puri, who explored the association between firm-level asset changes and return momentum, emphasized that few stock market anomalies have received as much attention among researchers as the momentum effect, first documented by Igeresh and Titman. Even almost 2 decades after its initial discovery, the momentum anomaly remains an intellectual curiosity. The persistence of the momentum effect may justify the abundance of theoretical and empirical research that has been directed at uncovering the underlying drivers for the large payoffs from this trading strategy. It is worth noting that the momentum anomaly is not only of academic interest, but also of fundamental importance for the financial industry. In their new working paper from 2013, entitled Momentum Crashes, Yen and Moskowitz highlight that momentum is a strategy employed by numerous quantitative investors within and across multiple asset classes, and even by mutual fund managers. In particular, hedge funds exhibit significant exposure to momentum across a variety of hedge fund categories. However, the strong positive average returns and Sharpe ratios of the momentum strategies are punctuated with occasional strong reversals or crashes. Momentum returns are negatively skewed, and the crashes can be pronounced and persistent. Because of the momentum strategy's popularity, it is important to discover and determine the risks associated with momentum trading. This doctoral thesis, Essays on Empirical Asset Pricing, is positioned within the general empirical asset pricing framework and consists of 6 essays, whereof 4 have already been published. The first essay in this thesis tests whether changes in the US federal budget deficit affect stock market returns. The US federal budget deficit is a key macroeconomic variable in the US and has increased continuously for several decades. In the wake of the downgrading of the US economy, the US federal budget deficit and its impact on domestic macroeconomic variables have generated a great deal of public attention. The second essay makes use of the findings of the first essay and constructs a portfolio-based risk factor based upon impulse responses from equity portfolios to changes in the US federal budget deficit. Consequently, the proposed risk factor is directly linked to the macroeconomy and thus is economically motivated. The third essay aims to deepen the understanding of the momentum anomaly in global equity markets and extends the studies of Danny and Moskowitz and movie marks. The fourth and fifth essay shed new light on the puzzle that was documented by Ang et al. When realized idiosyncratic volatility for individual stocks is estimated relative to the Palmer and French three-factor model, the measured quantity of idiosyncratic risk has an apparently negative relationship with the cross-section of stock returns in the following period. While the fourth assay examines this apparent anomaly in a global equity market setting, the fifth assay examines this relationship in a scenario where the level of idiosyncratic volatility is ex ante controlled for liquidity, size, and information asymmetry. Finally, the DARTS assay extends Abramoff et al. Studies and investigates the link between momentum-based trading strategies implemented in a global equity market setting and country-specific credit ratings. The first paper contributes to the existing literature by highlighting a significant impact from real changes in the federal budget deficit on real stock market returns. A Granger causality test of the reduced bar model in subsamples implies that the changes in the US federal budget deficit are Granger causal for stock markets in both subsamples. The results indicate that while the causality originates from the fundamental sphere in the earlier subsample, the more recent sample also shows a significant impact from the financial sphere following to the fundamental one. The second essay contributes to the literature by establishing a significant and robust connection between the US federal budget deficit risk and equity returns. Shifts in the budget deficit have the ability to predict future returns. A zero-cost strategy for conducting a new risk factor related to changes in the budget deficit risk is proposed. The zero-cost portfolio is long on equity portfolios that exhibit the highest negative cumulative impulse responses to orthogonalized shocks in the budget deficit process, and short on equity portfolios that exhibit the least cumulative impulse responses to orthogonalized shocks in the budget deficit process. Palmer and McGasry cross-sectional regressions show that the new proposed risk factor is statistically significantly priced, while exhibiting an economic magnitude similar to the value premium. Moreover, the results offer strong evidence that the new proposed risk factor is negatively associated with the business cycle. That is, in economic downturns, the payoff appears to be considerably higher than when the economy is in a good state. Taken together, the results presented in this essay provide indications that changes in the budget deficit appear to be relevant for describing the cross-section of equity returns. The third paper contributes to the existing literature, first, by identifying the profitability of momentum strategies implemented in a global equity market setting during the most recent economic recessions. Second, in extending Novimark's analysis to a global equity market setting, it assesses whether intermediate past performance offers more beneficial information to internationally aligned investors in the USA than recent past performance can. The results of this paper diverge from others in finding that momentum-based trading strategies in a global equity market setting generate statistically significant negative returns, at least during the most recent recessions, irrespective of whether the strategies are based on intermediate or recent past performance. Although strategies based on intermediate past performance appear to be market neutral, they did not generate positive returns during the most recent recessions. The empirical findings indicate that the severe recession of December 2007 to June 2009, the financial crisis period, is a major driver of this result. Integrating the results with the year's Titman's backtesting results and Yadid and Moscowitz's recent findings confirms that momentum strategies may bring a risk of extraordinary high negative returns following large market declines. The fourth paper contributes to the existing literature in the following ways. First, Ang et al.'s analyses are extended to a global equity market setting. In doing so, the study assesses whether realized idiosyncratic volatility is priced in the cross-section of global equity markets. Second, it identifies if the strategy is related to business cycle. For internationally aligned investors, uncovering the risks associated with global investment vehicles and the underlying driving forces is a key issue. It is especially important to understand the association between patterns in equity returns and economic conditions. The findings of this paper indicate that idiosyncratic risk is positively priced in the cross-section of global equity markets. While this result diverges from the findings of Ang et al., who found a negative relationship, it implies that the typical globally aligned investor holds an underdiversified portfolio. The fifth essay contributes to the existing literature in the following respects. First, it extends the contributions of Ang et al., Bali and Kachiki, and Huang et al. By adopting the analysis of portfolios sorted by idiosyncratic volatility in a stock universe consisting exclusively of large firms with high liquidity and the lowest possible information asymmetry. This essay differs from Bali and Kachiki in that the concern about size and liquidity is addressed by focusing exclusively on firms that were listed in the S&P 500. Second, motivated by Bali and Kachiki's and Huang et al.'s critique and in contrast with Ang et al., the essay operates with equal weighted portfolios. Thus, it ensures that any potential effect cannot be driven by a value weighting scheme. Finally, motivated by the empirical results of the previous regression analysis, it investigates whether a link between momentum clashes and payouts from a zero-cost strategy formed on realized idiosyncratic volatility can be established. The last paper contributes to the existing literature first by extending Avimov et al.'s study to an international equity market setting. That enables the assessment of whether globally implemented momentum strategies are associated with country-specific credit risk. For internationally aligned investment managers, revealing the risks associated with investment vehicles is fundamentally important. Moreover, by extending the study of Grobys, the paper identifies whether internationally implemented momentum strategies can be explained by the global climate branch risk factors. Finally, the study assesses whether a world credit risk factor, as detailed in Avimov et al., is capable of explaining these momentum profits. Taken together, the findings of this thesis have some important implications for practitioners and policymakers. For the financial industry, the thesis offers new insights into cross-sectional patterns and asset returns. For instance, the outcome of the analysis related to globally invested momentum strategies may have direct implications for the hedge fund industry in formulating and implementing asset allocation decisions and creating investment vehicles. For policymakers, the results of the thesis might be useful in macroeconomic policy formulations that involve an increase in the federal budget deficit. While positive innovations to the changes in the federal budget deficit process resulted in higher stock market returns 40 years ago, this effect has considerably weakened over time. Finally, firms that exhibit the highest negative cumulative impulse responses to orthogonal shocks in the budget deficit process tend to generate lower expected returns than firms that exhibit the least cumulative impulse responses. The corresponding risk-adjusted payoff of this strategy is minus 1.4% per quarter. Professor Dr. Wajekowski, would you, as the opponent appointed by the board of the Faculty of Business Studies of the University of Vaasa, present the comments and critique on my dissertation?